Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Wine Activity Room. My name is Callan Small and I'm on the development team at ICIC. This meeting is being hosted in a Zoom meeting room, so please make sure if you are muted unless you are speaking. And also you can update your name by clicking the three dots in the corner of your Zoom video and hitting rename, so that way we can see your name as well as the name of your business. If you have any technical difficulties or need help, please click the help desk located at the top bar of your Zoom room. We will also be using the chat for Q&A at the end, so please feel free to put any questions you have using the chat. Yeah, so I think that's it for Zoom, and we're ready to get started. I'm very excited to announce TJ Douglas from the Urban Grape, who will be leading our activity today. TJ, take it away.
Helen, thanks so much for having me. And look, everyone, I'm one of the top 100 winners, and I'm so honored. So thank you to everyone at ICIC. Thank you to Diego, and thank you to Callan for hosting tonight. Really excited. So when I received this package, I decided to not open up white wine tonight, but white wine with bubbles. So, you know, what better night to drink some champagne than to be an inner city 100 winner. So cheers to myself, cheers to all of you, and I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation. So my name is TJ Douglas, and I'm the founder and co-owner of the Urban Grape wine store. We're located in the South End neighborhood of Boston, Massachusetts. I am a 10-year-old company. My wife Hadley and I started this business in 2010, and we've obviously had our growing pains, but now, you know, we're living a business life of success, and it still takes a lot of work. And man, COVID definitely put us through the ringer, and you know, got us back to our entrepreneurial kind of motivation that we had so many years ago, and it's been great. My background is in hospitality and in wine and food. I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut, single mom in the projects of New Haven. And as she was putting herself through college while also working at a grocery store at nighttime, later, she was in her mid-20s. I was just a latchkey kid and coming home and, you know, running back home from the bus so I don't get beat up by kids much older than I was. When my mom was able to get a job and get us off welfare and, you know, provide more of a living wage back in 1989, we were able to move to Vermont out of New Haven, Connecticut, where we knew one person. My aunt worked up there, and so I ended up picking up. And so here's this, you know, young mixed race kid moving to Vermont, where I was the darkest person in my town by many shades and many hues. And you know, with that, as a 12 and a half, 13-year-old, there came a lot of stereotypes. Yeah, of course I was great at basketball, and yeah, I could jump, and yeah, I can dance, but there's other stuff that, you know, didn't really work with that. When I was 14 years old, in order to make more money and to help make ends meet, I ended up working at a restaurant, and this is really my entrance into the food and wine world, or at that time, really my food world. I worked in this little tiny restaurant in Randolph, Vermont, as a dishwasher, and this allowed me to one, you know, get a free meal, you know, a shift meal, but it also allowed me to make some money to, you know, to take girls out to, you know, mini golf and to movies and to buy baseball cards, you know, whatever, you know, a lot of 14-year-old boys want to do. That was really the catalyst to my career, was, you know, looking out into that dining room and seeing people eat and drink under candlelight, and, you know, good service. And it was something that I had never really experienced, and I really wanted to experience that. not only as the guest or the customer, but I also wanted to experience that as the server, as the person bringing that warm and hospitable, kind of candlelight feeling and environment. After that, I ended up working at McDonald's, and I made the joke recently that I'm probably responsible for a lot of the obesity rates in Bethel, Vermont, and Randolph, Vermont in the early 1990s, because I was really good at supersizing. I'm a good salesperson, and I like getting people what they want. And it taught me a lot about sales and to like hustle, and it was really great. During those times, I opened up a baseball card shop. I had a lawn mowing business. I used to stack wood, and I've always had this entrepreneurial, mindset, this kind of hustle mentality. Through high school, I played sports, and I always worked, and I always wanted to make my own money because the money wasn't there. When I ended up going to college 2 years after I graduated from high school, because I needed to make some money to actually go to school, I ended up getting hurt playing rugby. You can't see here where I'm sitting down in my dining room, but I'm kind of a big guy. And I played rugby, and I got hurt right before the basketball season started, and I couldn't work anymore. So as the bills piled up, I ended up having to drop out of college. Only about a year and a half, maybe 2 years in. So here I am, a 42-year-old Black man in Jamaica Plain with a $5 million business, and I don't have a college degree, and my staff is more educated on paper than I am. But I think my experience has gotten to me to where I am, as well as my entrepreneurial kind of mentality. It ended up bringing me to Boston in 2000 after college, where I knew one person. And I started at the top of one of our main streets, for those of you that aren't in Boston, called Boylston Street. And I had my resume, and I started at the top. And I ended up just walking down the street, handing out my resume to a bunch of people. And I ended up getting a job at a restaurant. And again, because of my size and I think my smile, I ended up getting a job as a bouncer and also a server from my years of experience in the restaurant side. And it's another point where I met my wife and fell in love with wine. And I ran a few restaurants in the city. There's a great one called Armani Cafe, where I ended up writing the wine list and teaching my staff to help take the intimidation out of wine. And I designed a system to sell wine progressively by the body or the weight. If you ever hear these things, so we'll get into it tonight. If you ever hear the terms of like, oh, this is a light-bodied wine or a full-bodied wine, I designed a whole wine program that was designed like that. And I'll get into that a little bit later. When my wife Hadley and I started to think about starting our family and having some kids, at the time I was a general manager of a restaurant. I was working about 90 hours a week, and that wasn't great for a new dad. So I ended up going to work for a wholesaler and selling to stores and restaurants here in the Boston area. And I had some of the best restaurants and some big stores. And what I realized is that I didn't have I didn't get any gratification from my commission. I wanted to actually talk to the person drinking the wine that I'm selling. I wanted to be in that candlelit dining room that got me into this business, so many years ago. And I ended up thinking about starting my own business. My wife and I were in Italy, and we're on a trip, and she said, "Hey, TJ," she said, "Hey, T, what's your 5-year plan?" And immediately I said, "Look, I want to open up a wine store. I want to bring back the hospitality that I feel is missing in retail. And I want to set it up in this progressive format, the way that I used to write wine lists, and really even the playing field in terms of being able to buy wine, because wine is very scary. And I wanted to take the intimidation out of buying wine." And so she's like, "Great, let's do it. Let me know what you need." I got, we have 2 kids at home, and it took about 2 years to find a location. This was in 09, coming into 10. And I ended up finding a location in a suburb of Boston, super high rent, a lot of rich people that always asked for discounts, even though I was the young Black entrepreneur. But they asked for the discounts, and I had to kind of stand my ground and kind of work my magic around that. And we were off the get-go, we were a pretty awarded wine store, and we had the opportunity to, someone found us and said, "Hey, we have this great location in Boston where we actually lived. Do you want to open up this store?" So we ended up opening up our second store in 2012. And for those of you that are, all you business owners out here, more locations, especially if you're an owner occupied location, isn't the easiest thing to do. When I was in one store, the owners in one store, but the customer that wanted to see the owner was in the other store, right? And you can never make everyone happy and be in the right place at the right time. We saw that our second location really took off. We were better business owners. We knew more about wine. We knew more about how to sell. We were better managers. And we decided that after about 3 years of running both stores together, to get rid of our first store, to sell that liquor license and really focus on our one store in Boston. It was a better location. It was actually cheaper rent, and the store did about double in sales. And just like the hard decision of to leave our well-paying jobs as a wine salesman, my wife was in marketing, to leave that to really follow my dream of being an entrepreneur and a business owner and a wine salesperson. It was just as scary to think about selling our baby, right? The place that got us there. And I'm telling you, the night that we signed the purchase and sale on that first store, we looked at each other and like, we should have done this 2 years ago, And since then, this is where we've really seen our true growth as the company, the Urban Grape, where when we sold our first store in mid 2015, coming into 2016. This allowed us not only the capacity, but also the bandwidth to focus on different avenues of revenue and different fun things that we want to do in our business that I didn't have the time to do before. So we started a delivery service. We started an online platform. I started a seller consultation side of the business. We started Urban Affairs, which is our wine and education and event side of the company. We couldn't do any of that before because I was running back and forth, even though they were 5 miles apart, running back and forth. And, it was really tough. Closing that store was the best decision that we made. This allowed us to bring over our staff that has now been with us for a couple of years and offered free delivery for all of our loyal customers for the store that we closed. So we try not to lose any of our business that we've gained over the last couple of years. And, fast forward to 2020, I'm going to take a sip of wine in a minute. And I suggest you do too. Come into 2020, my wife and I had a whole brand new business plan. This was coming into our 10-year anniversary as a company. We started making money a couple years ago and sort of paying ourselves back, which was great. And we had our whole business plan. And then March hit. And we just had to tear that business plan up and say, okay, well, now what? And, for the first couple of weeks, we made a pivot. But after that, it was just more of a reimagination of what our business is and what it absolutely could be. So that I'm going to get into some wine. I'm going to take a sip because when I talk, my mouth gets dry, as everyone does. So what I'm sipping on right now is champagne. Champagne is sparkling wine. How do you make sparkling wine? It's very easy, and it was found out by mistake. Some people say from the monk Dom Perignon, hence the name that Moet has for their tête de cuvée, their high-end wine. In order to make wine, you're going to be using a specific type of grape called Vinus vinifera. So when you have a grape called like Cabernet Sauvignon, or Sauvignon Blanc or Pinot Grigio, that all comes from one family of grapes. If you had like a Concord grape, something that would make like Manischewitz, that is not part of this same family. So you would need a Vinus vinifera grape strain, and then you have yeast in the air. You have yeast on the outside of the grape skin. Think about when you grab an apple, maybe off of a tree, or off of the grocery over at your local grocery store, and it's cloudy. It has like this kind of gray kind of like waxiness on it. But the moment that you polish it off on your shirt or your pants, it's now shiny. What you've wiped off is something called the plume. Now the plume is on that apple, but it's also on all the grape skins that are grown in the vineyards. It's on your oranges, anything that's growing out there. And that plume is something that the fruit where the vegetable generates, and it's sticky, and it attracts the yeast, the airborne yeast that's in the air, and it sticks to it, okay? So when you have yeast, and then you add sugar, sugar is what's in the grape juice inside of the grape. When that grape skin peels back and it breaks open, and the grape skin, the sugar water comes out and comes in contact with the yeast, that starts alcoholic fermentation, okay? That's the most important thing about, not the most important thing of why we drink wine, because we shouldn't drink it to get a buzz. It just happens though that we might get that way. But with the sugar and the yeast together, make alcoholic fermentation. The part of that formula on the other side produces sulfites. So sulfites are in every single wine produced on earth. Now, brands that are, you know, big commercial brands or people that make super low end, low price wines, they might add extra sulfites because it's a natural preservative. You don't want your product to go bad as it's sitting on the shelf waiting for the most important people in our world, which is the consumer, to buy it. So sulfites is in there. You also get alcohol, and then you also get a little bit of carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide blows off. If anyone, I'm gonna see if I can switch my view here to the gallery view. Can I just see a show of hands? Has anyone ever been to a winery before? Okay, perfect. So you see, you know, the big tanks that are there, the alcoholic fermentation tanks where this process happens to make wine, the CO2 blows out and goes out into the air and out into the winery, and it's fine. But if that alcoholic fermentation, the second alcoholic fermentation took place in a bottle, I did a half bottle because I'm drinking alone tonight, in a half bottle, after you make wine, you put it back into this bottle, and then you add a little bit more sugar to it, and it starts alcoholic fermentation again. It's called a secondary fermentation, but you put like a beer cap on it. In South Africa, they call this a cap classic. In France, they call this method champenois. And what happens, that CO2, there's nowhere for it to go because it's capped off. So the CO2 in the champagne bottles or the sparkling wine bottles gets trapped from its secondary fermentation. And that's where the bubbles come from. And what the bubbles are called, it's called the mousse, M-O-U-S-S-E. And so when you feel the bubbles on your palate is just your mouth. That's the mousse, and that's from the carbon dioxide that got melded in to the liquid of the wine. And for this case, I'm drinking a champagne from France. Champagne can only be called champagne if it comes from the zip code of Champagne. Other than that, if it's made this way, it's called sparkling wine. Okay, doesn't mean that it's any better or worse, doesn't mean that you're going to like it more. Means that it's probably going to be a little bit more expensive because it's an expensive zip code, but there are some great sparkling wines made in this style, coming from South Africa, coming from California, coming from Chile, and then also coming from other parts of France that aren't as expensive. I'm going to actually open up, if we have right now, is there one question, Callan, about wine so far that we can get into? If not, I'm just going to continue.
TJ,
No,
I have a question that is non-wine related.
Okay.
Because I've seen a number of comments about your art collection. So comment on the ones behind you, and if I can take the benefit of knowing you and what you guys have gone through this year, also talk about the art that you unintentionally got this year as a result of the demonstrations and some of the turbulence in Boston.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that little lead in there, Diego. Everyone, I would love everyone to take a sip real quick while I reposition myself. So Diego's referring to the May 31st, 3 o'clock in the morning going into June 1st damage that we had to our store on Columbus Ave in Boston. This was many hours after the peaceful protest for Black Lives Matter happened in Boston, and it was just some kids going down, and they came in with a sledgehammer and damaged our store. At this time, because we're in COVID, we actually had no cash because we've actually been closed for our customers coming in. We've been online and Apple Pay only. And these kids came in, took a couple bottles of whiskey, smashed the cash registers. They came in for money, not wine, and they broke our window. and I'll get into the artwork in a moment. And you know, my wife and I were scared. We live in JP, which is a section of Boston. It's called Jamaica Plain, and we're about 4 miles from the store. They're kind of two different worlds. And where all the protests were happening, you know, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're watching the news as people were moving closer and closer and closer to the thing that keeps food on our table and my kids in school and our lights on, right? And something that we've built and you know, have grown broke numerous times getting to this point over the years and clearing out our savings to build this. You know, they're going towards our store, and we're freaking, you know, we're starting to freak out. And you know, my wife's like, well, what do we do? And I said, you know what, it's only stuff. It's only stuff. What we're marching for, what people are marching for, is it's not about the, you know, the bottle of Cabernet in the store. It's about equality, and it's about safety for people of color, and it's about police abuse, right? And I said, look, like, we have insurance. That's just stuff. Anything in that store is replaceable. So turn the TV off. Let's go to bed. Wake up in the next morning. We see someone who lives across the street, one of our customers, texted Hadley a picture, and it was like, you know, 5:30 in the morning, of our broken window. And we're like, oh, here we go. So here I am. And, you know, I mentioned my size, but I think I only mentioned my size just being a Black man, right? I think if I was white, I wouldn't have to mention that I'm 6'3" and 260, right? Because if I was white, I'm not a threat. But as a Black man, especially in an elevator, I'm a threat. So that's why I kind of put that out there. This is part of me, I guess. I shouldn't have to, but I do. And part of my size going in, I go in to the store that morning, and I climb through the window. And as I climb through, the alarm of the store goes off. It never went off. At the same time, my wife is on the phone with the ADT security company. And they're saying, look, the alarm in the store is going off. We have to, unless you know the password, we have to call the police. Like, it's what we do. And she says, please don't call the police. You're going to find my 6'3" Black husband in a broken in liquor store after a dangerous night in Boston, and the police are going to come in, and that's what they're going to see. They're not going to see, you know, an award-winning wine guy, right, in his own business. And right as she says, I'm so sorry, miss. And I think the woman was getting very, very caught up on the phone. I was able to poke my head in, turn the alarm off. Alarm went off. She goes, oh, you know, Mrs. Douglas, the alarm just went off. You're fine. And then the woman at the security company started crying on the phone. And she said, I'm so sorry that I just put you through that. And so with that, you know, we've always run our company as a very transparent company. And so many people were like, I am so sorry about your window. And we're like, you know, damn it, people, it's not about the window, right? And so we ended up putting on our Instagram that, you know, it's not about the window, right? A window is not a life, right? And we tried to have that be the focus as opposed to the few stolen bottles. So we ended up finding this great local artist. And as I go around, and his name is Curtis, and we ended up doing this as part of some plywood right there. And what it is, it's a broken window, right? It's broken glass. And then there are hearts coming out from it. And it says community on it. And that was our front window for, I don't know, probably about 4 or 5 months. And we ended up putting that in our dining room so that we can remind ourselves of what we've been through, how far we need to go. And it's crazy. Curtis, since then, we have a lot of followers on our Instagram account. And Curtis, young Black man, I think he's probably mid-20s or so, great artist, but hasn't had access. No one to blow him up. We put him on his Instagram. He did the whole timeline of him painting this, which took a day. It was unbelievable. And he did it, sold his first piece of art that night from our Instagram feed. And then a local TV station got on him, did a whole feature on him. Now he's commissioned by certain areas in Harvard Square doing some artwork. He does these beautiful, like, you know, balloon type cartoon dinosaurs and stuff like that. But it started from our broken window. So yeah, 2020 is a shitty year, but so much good has also come out of 2020, and it's forced us to kind of think outside of the box. And I think for us, at least us on this call, be better humans. But that right there gave this young Black man an opportunity. And you can't take that away. And so that broken window, I'd have 100 broken windows to get someone like Curtis to do that. So anyways, the rest of the art, I married very well. My wife's mother, my mother-in-law, is a great artist. She's never sold her work. So the one behind us was a Christmas present. And then the one over here by my, I don't know where I'm pointing, over here by my bar was, I think, maybe an anniversary present for us. We've been married for coming up on 16 years now. So yeah, our house is filled with art, but that community, the hearts coming through broken glass, that's the spot right there in our house in JP. So I think I answered about the art. Let me get into a little bit more wine education, and then I want to talk about something that we've been doing. Oh, and mind you, Curtis is where he is now since June 1st. You know, it's just like that, right? The power of social media, and it just takes one person to hold someone else up. We're gonna get into some rosé. So speaking about, being a young Black man or being a Black man, there's not a lot of people that look like me in the wine industry. I've spent now, 20 years of my life. I'm 42. I spent 25 years of my life in the wine and food industry. And usually I'm the only person in the room. Usually I am the only person on a wine trip, whether it's in South Africa, Chile, Argentina, Paris, France, wherever. I'm typically the only person that is a person of color on that trip. When I do a wine education for a big corporation in Boston, typically I'm the only person of color in there, except for the busboys and the bartenders. And that needs to change. What we've done over the years, and what I've been trying to do, is to bring more Black-owned brands into Massachusetts. Just to kind of throw a little bit of cloud on us. We are an A+ account in the state. We're a top 100 wine retailer in the U.S. We've been featured in New York Times, Food and Wine Magazine. We've won Best of Boston numerous times in a row. We're ICIC winners. We're published authors. We wrote a book, right? But all of that needed to provide some change in this industry. And because of all the things that we've been able to do, and I've been able to do over the 2 decades in Boston, was have my voice heard. Because I said, look, if you don't listen to me to a supplier, then I'm not going to buy your wine, because I do have a little bit of power on that. And said, look, I found these great producers of color. I've tasted samples that they've sent me, and I want you to carry them. I will take commitment. I will pay ahead. I will say only bring 100 cases in, and if they don't sell, or I'll even be exclusive with them. And what we've been able to do, we've been able to bring in 8 Black-owned wine and spirits brands into Massachusetts this year. The suppliers really only started saying yes June 2nd, but you know what, we'll take it, right? In June, people's eyes, ears, hearts, wallets were open, and they felt that if this is something that they can do, and maybe take a little bit of guilt off themselves, or on the just straight up on the positive side of really say, look, our industry needs to change, then yes, TJ, we're going to support you. We're going to support your wife. We're going to support the Urban Grape and everything that you guys have done. And yeah, we'll take a risk, because you've done this long enough that you're not going to do something that's not going to make sense. So the first wine that we were able to bring in was one of my dudes, Dane Burston, and this is Lafette de Rosé. This guy worked for Moet for about 10 years, and he ended up being on the marketing side and really seeing where how things were marketed, right? Like Moet owns Hennessy. Hennessy is cognac. A lot of the Black community drinks cognac, right? He did champagne. The world drinks champagne. He said, look, I have an opportunity. I want to use my experience, and I want to go into my world of Miami. I want to go into my world of DC, my world of Atlanta, and I want to bring a product for people like me, so that they feel comfortable learning about wine. And so he came up with La Fête de Rosé. La Fête means the party. And so he is the owner of this brand, and he works exclusively with this 300-year-old wine producing family in Saint-Tropez in the south of France in Provence. And they make a rosé, and we've been exclusive with it since day one, and we've sold hundreds of cases of this. I wouldn't bring it in if it wasn't a good product, but it's a great product. But he wouldn't have sold as many cases if I didn't know he was there. And so now he's telling his friends, like, hey, you know what? You want to get out of this job? You want to go start your brand? I got a guy to help you, right? So rosé is not sweet. It's very important. Just because it's pink, it's not sweet. We've already, we're all experts in alcoholic fermentation, so we know how that works. But how does red wine become red wine? If you go to the grocery store and you pick a green grape and a red grape or a black grape and you peel the skin back, the inside is exactly the same color. It's like this grayish color. Red wine gets the color in its wine only from the maceration process of the juice touching the skins. So back to those of you who have visited a winery, those big tanks, they might have hoses coming out or they might have punch downs. What that does, it pushes the skins through the liquid to the bottom of the tank. And as the skins have a lot of buoyancy, they float back up. And as they float back up, the liquid, the wine, the alcohol wine already, is extracting color, phenolic compounds, flavors, but it's also extracting tannin. Tannin is a dry acid. Tannin is in tea, that dryness that you get from tea. Tannin's in walnuts, but it also comes from the grape skins, which is why red wine like Cabernet is super dry, but Pinot Grigio and Chardonnay really isn't, okay? White wine is typically not made with the skins. Rosé is a little bit in between. Let's say you make a Cabernet Sauvignon, and in order to get it that dark, it needs to spend 35 days touching the skins, the maceration process. This rosé might take 7 hours, okay? So if this spent a day, it'd be darker. If it spent 3 days, it'd be red wine. So rosé literally is light red wine. No, it's not sweet. Has nothing to do with white Zinfandel, but it's really beautiful. So I'm going to show you a little bit of wine geekiness of how to, again, help take the intimidation out of wine. When you swirl the wine, everyone knows, not everyone, but I'm sorry, a lot of people know that when you're doing this is that you're letting the wine breathe. But what you're actually, that's correct, but to break it down even more, the liquid alcohol needs to turn into a vapor. In order to do that, it needs to sit here. And in order to do that quicker, you're going to swirl it. So this is speeding up the alcohol evaporation process, okay? And you're also covering more of your surface area of your glass. So when you stick your nose in, you're smelling more wine, okay? And it's just that much more that you smell. And then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do it super loud, but it's annoying, but it's funny. You'll laugh. So that noise, I don't know why I held it to the camera. I'm actually doing it on my ears. But that noise, that bringing air into your mouth, into your palate, is the same thing as this. You're evaporating the alcohol. That's why sometimes if you take a glass of red wine and you bring in some air, it burns a little bit. It's because you brought the alcohol evaporated too quickly. The same way that if back in college or last night, or if you're a winner, maybe you did it before this, you took a shot of tequila and you went, whoo, and you threw it back and it burned your throat. And then you went, what'd you do? You evaporated that alcohol even faster, so it burned even more. Right. So next time we get on a Zoom together, I'll talk to you how to drink tequila and whiskey properly, but tonight we're talking about wine. So when you have this, you keep a little bit of the liquid in your mouth and you roll it around. You're not swishing it around like mouthwash, but you're just kind of coating your mouth and you're increasing the surface area. So you're tasting more of the wine and the esters and the phenol compounds and all that stuff. And then you swallow it and it's delicious. Wine brings people together, right? Our mission statement.
TJ?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Please, I love questions.
Oh, okay. If I'm at a gathering, having dinner with friends, is it proper for me to make that shh noise? Can I do
It
that?
depends how good their friends are, or unless they do it first. No, but what's fun and kind of a way to do it safely is two things. One, turn your head. You don't do, I amplified it, right? And you can also turn your computer down a little bit, right? But like I made it super loud. But I think if you do that process, which should take 5 seconds, right? You take a sip, you smell it, you take a sip, you bring in a little bit of air, you swallow it. If you take 30 seconds with the first glass of wine that you have out of a new bottle, and you think about it, what does it remind you of? Where does it bring you? Does it remind you of summer? Does it remind you of cotton candy from the fair when you were a kid, right? Like that's what wine's about. It brings you back to a place. You're going to learn so much more about wine, and you're going to learn so much more about your palate. Okay. To bring that air in, you can do it super quietly. But let's say you're with a group of friends, or I guess COVID, so you're probably with only one other person that you live with. But you do it and say, hey, you know what I learned? Or hey, you know what I heard is that if we do this, we can get a little bit more of the wine flavor. And then you do it together, and now you've actually created a safe place for that. Yeah. So good, great question. Great question. I saw Sarah, you had a question?
Yeah, I did. So often whenever I drink wine, I feel congested, and wondered what causes that and what's the solution.
So it might be when you drink red wine, it might be the histamines in it. The same thing that makes people congested is also part of what makes red wine really good for your blood and your heart to an extent. Sometimes people have mild sensitivities to things that could be the tannin. Like, does it only happen when you have red wine, or does it happen when you have white wine too? What do you drink for white wine? Are you Chardonnay or are you Pinot Grigio and Sauv Blanc?
I'm very democratic. I drink the Chardonnay, the Pinot Grigio, the Sauvignon Blanc, so
Cool.
all of those.
If
But
you
I do
have a
worse with red wine.
if you have a cocktail, like if you have a gin and tonic, does it happen?
Mm-mm.
So you know what it could be? It could be tannin, right? Because a lot of Chardonnay, most Chardonnay and most red wine is aged in oak and wood, and sometimes that could be a sensitivity to you.
Okay.
But I'm definitely not a doctor, so please don't. But a lot of times that's it. And a lot of people are like, oh, I also get headaches when I drink. Well, are you also drinking water and staying hydrated? Because you're drinking sugar and alcohol and it dehydrates your body. So, I don't drink champagne at weddings because it gives me a headache. Well, you're not staying hydrated and you're not eating. So, you get the same headache if you're drinking Mountain Dew or Coca-Cola on that. Great question.
May I ask a question, TJ?
Yes, please. Hi, Jen.
I actually own a printing company in Northern California, but my father grew wine grapes and now my son took over. So basically couldn't sell them last year. And so I brought a wine to market, right?
Yeah.
But I haven't got my permit to sell yet. I haven't got anything. And I guess I was asking you is as you go through your tasting, which I'll listen to quite differently, is I'm with this avocation, I'm only selling online, kind of this private, whatever, but do you have any advice for somebody like me who I made a blend of one and then I'm going to have a Syrah and it's very cute and the packaging, but how does one go about getting the sales? I've never seen anything like it in my life. Not only just getting this permit to sell, but then how do you just sell online and get found? And so continue on your wine tasting, but if you wouldn't mind even maybe reaching out to me offline or sending me your email that I could maybe reach to you, I'd be happy to send you a bottle and just ask you to taste it for me.
Yeah, I would absolutely love to. Yeah.
I'm happy to do the connection between you two.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I just put my email in there. Yeah, there's so many laws and restrictions. It's actually really easy to sell online, but it's really hard to get paid online. So you don't want to just, give your wine away. But I just put my email in there. So please, 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 Joan, reach out to me. I'd love to be of some service for you. When talking about rosé, rosé is amazing. It's fresh, it's yummy. It's not seasonal. We think about it just as kind of like a summer wine, but like rosé and turkey over Thanksgiving is fantastic. Darker rosés, ones that might have a little bit more skin contact, are great in the winter months. And a lot of rosé is not aged in oak. And so for all of you business owners that actually sell a product, if you make something and you have to wait to sell it, that's just costing you money, right? You're paying rent on that. So if you can have a wine that you don't have to age in an oak barrel, that you buy for $800 and you have to age it for 18 months, you can sell it quicker and increase that cash flow. That is what wineries think about when they make rosé. It's really easy cash flow, but as a consumer of wine, rosé is great because you get great quality, but there's not that extra rent attached to it, if that makes sense. I want to talk a little bit about the Urban Grape Wine Studies Award for students of color before we get into the third and last wine. The Urban Grape Wine Studies Award for students of color is a partnership that we've created with Boston University and the Metropolitan College. There is a wine education program there called the Elizabeth Bishop School. It's a 4-level course. It takes about a year, costs about $8,000 to do. This is a course that I went through many years ago, and I really enjoyed it. It's not like going to get a certificate to be a sommelier, and it's not going to get you a certificate to be a certified wine educator, but it's more of like, okay, I love wine and I work in a restaurant or I own a restaurant. I want to know how to increase my wine sales and increase my knowledge. Or I'm retired and I have a little bit of wine and I love cheese and I'm thinking about opening up a cheese shop and I should probably know about wine because my customers are going to ask about that. So it's a really like user-friendly kind of course, and I have a lot of respect for it. This is something that Hadley and I have wanted to do for a long time, meaning a few years. For the past 5 years, actually longer, but we really started talking about it 5 years ago. As a business owner, and even before this, when I worked for someone else, when I was a general manager, even a bar manager, hiring people that look like me was damn near impossible. In Boston, we're kind of like a diverse city, but it's a very white city. It's one of the most educated cities in the United States, and we have some of the best hospitals in the world, right? But a lot of that centers around non-people of color, right? And over the years, people have gotten pushed out to other neighborhoods and not being right in the heart of Boston. When I would hire, whether I was on the restaurant side or more importantly with the Urban Grape, anytime that I hired for a floor staff position or a management position, it would 100% of the time be someone who was white, and they probably had 3 years of college or 4 years of have a 4-year liberal arts degree, and now they just want to work in wine, right? Because they can. And every single time I had an opportunity to hire like a delivery driver, 100% of the time, it was a young Black male or an old Black male or a male who's of Latinx descent, right? That's it. I've never got a white delivery driver application unless it was like an 18-year-old kid trying to make some money over the summer in between classes. And I'm like, look, I need some people on the floor like me because I'm not going to get the customers that look like me if I don't have someone selling to them that looks like them, right? And I'm tired of being the only one in the room, and this is the room that I own. Like I want to increase this. And it was just so hard that if we didn't have the pool to hire from, we would never be able to change diversity in our industry of wine and hospitality. So we decided to create that pool ourselves. 2 years ago, we reached out to a wholesaler, so that's the person that I buy wine from, and also to a restaurant group, and said, look, we have this idea. We want to do a 3-part program. One is wine education through Boston University, one is a paid internship, and one is a mentorship, all on 3 sides of the wine business that I worked on. And I said, this needs to change the landscape of what the wine industry looks like, at least in Boston, until we can grow it. They were all down for it, but we needed funding, right? And so having that cash flow and having an extra $10,000 to be able to start this program, it really wasn't feasible, even though we were paying ourselves and our business was great and we had great sales. We didn't have that extra 10K in our bank account to just give away and start something else. COVID has been very good for alcohol retail in the United States. Unfortunately, our friends that own restaurants or work in restaurants, it's affecting them. But people are drinking more and they're drinking at home 100% of the time. And that's, in retail. And so that's helped us. After June 1st, we were featured in the New York Times as being a Black-owned business. And, you know, after 10 years, people are like, oh, wow, you're a Black-owned business. I'm like, yep, always been a Black-owned business, always been a female-owned business. But now, June 1st, you know that I'm a Black-owned business. We had such an amazing amount of community support, both near and far, that we actually had our best day, and that turned into our best month as a 10-year-old company in June. And I think I'm going to have time. You guys are all good. We were working with Boston University for about a year and a half, 2 years, trying to get this program started. And right in June, they came up to us and said, hey, guess what? I know we've been working on this for 18 months, but we found a donor for you. So this donor said, hey, we need to support this. This will be great. And it's like, great, they'll fund this for one student to go through this program, and then we can start the Urban Grape, you know, we can start the wine scholarship program. And I said, you know, that's not, you know, that's great, but like, what's the story with it? Well, Urban Grape's name can't be attached to it. TJ Douglas's name can't be attached to it. And it's got to be a scholarship program where it's solely focused on a financial need as opposed to actually building, you know, equality and getting some, you know, people of color in this program. I said, well, that's everything against of what I want. This is the focus is, you know, your mom can be, you know, a plastic surgeon, your dad can be a lawyer, but if you're a Black kid, your challenges are still harder than other people. And so I want to focus this on you. And they said, well, this is what the person's going to do. And I said, well, you know, how much is it going to cost? They said, you know, $6,500 to start it, $10,000 to start an endowment. Opened up my phone, looked at my bank account app. I'm like, great, we're doing this. Forget that other dude. This is going to be, and we're going to call it the Urban Grape Wine Studies Award for students of color. And Boston University, not just the Met Club or the Met School, Boston University as a whole has said, one, they have never put through an endowment application as quick as they did for this. They have never started a program as quick as this and have been approved by the Board of Trustees as quick as this. And they've actually never gotten a link up to donate as quick as they did for our group. So we're many first. Since the end of June, we've raised about $165,000 for this program. And that's without any corporate asks. No one's donated $100,000 on that. And this is very important because once we hit $200,000, this program will turn into an endowment and it'll just feed itself. And so Boston University said, hey, we've raised so much money. What do you think about putting 2 students through this? So we went and we asked the wholesaler and we asked the restaurant, and we said, hey, I know this is tough times, but we have this opportunity to put 2 students through this program every year for life. What do you think about that? And they're like, yes, absolutely, done. We're doing it. So in October, Suhail Ramirez, a 45-year-old woman of color, started the program at Boston University, 100% paid for, working for us at the normal sales rate, a couple hours, a couple days a week, mentoring with me. And then she moves on in January to the wholesaler and learns how to be the salesperson, not just the warehouse worker, where most Black and brown people are. In January, Amanda Best starts, another woman of color, starts this 4-month program with us, and then she moves into the wholesale. And then they're going to be ambassadors for this program. And this is what's going to change the landscape in Boston starting 2 months ago. And it's been great so far. Once we have proof of concept here in Boston, we really want to take this on a national level and really turn this in to a 501c3 and a true foundation. And our goal is to even start some hospitality and wine programs at some HBCUs, you know, around the country. Just because I don't have a college degree doesn't make me feel that college education is not important. And so we're really trying to support that, and we're pretty stoked to be able to do that. And you know, I'm using wine in this sense to really help build community through beverage and take intimidation out. Now, when you come into the Urban Grape, you'll see 2 more people of color in there, you know, working on the floor, and it's just awesome. So for all of you that are business owners, I'm sure you've thought about the same thing doing this over the years. You know, it's tough work, but ask for that support, and we really need to be able to pay it forward in the industries that we love. Let's get into the last wine. I know I'm probably going over time, but I love talking. And obviously I'm passionate about this.
We have 15 minutes, TJ,
Cool.
so we're good. And before you do that, I think Sarah had a question.
Yeah.
Sarah?
Hey,
Thank
Sarah.
you. I know you went quickly past champagne, but I just wanted your commentary on sparkling in general, other parts of France, Cremant, etc. Like, do you have a strong opinion that, hey, champagne came first, but all the others are just as good? I just want to hear your view on sparkling. Thanks.
Yeah, totally.
Great talk.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You can all follow us on Instagram at Urban Grape. And you can see all the fun stuff that we do. Yeah, doing things that you mentioned, Cremant. Cremant just means, Method Champenois sparkling wine, and it typically happens in France, but it comes from other zip codes other than the appellation or the region of Champagne. So you can do like Cremant de Bourgogne, right? So Burgundy, which typically makes Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. Pardon me. What sparkling wines made from Burgundy are probably half the price of a good quality Method Champenois from Champagne. Cremant de Lemieux from the appellation of Lemieux. You can get great sparkling wines from one of my favorite grape varietals called Chenin Blanc. They have them in the Loire Valley in France, where a lot of Sauvignon Blanc comes from. But also they make really, really dope sparkling wines from Chenin Blanc in South Africa. And if anyone's ever been to South Africa, beautiful country, so much pride in like advertising and exploring and welcoming tourists and really having this be like a tourism hub in the world, and it's great. But their economy is not great, and their currency is not great. As an American buying wine from South Africa, the conversion rate is like 12 to 13 on the US dollar. So you can get like ridiculous wine for $25. That same quality would probably be close to $75 to $100 if it was in a greater region. So I check out South Africa. I talk a lot about South Africa, but great question. But feel free, I put my email in there. Feel free to hit me up, and I'm happy to make some recommendations or follow us online.
South Africa, and TJ, I totally agree with you. I love Stellenbosch in the region. It's beautiful.
It's great. It's hard to get there, but so let's finish up with one of my favorite grape varietals and one of the most famous grape varietals. One, because it's not intimidating because you can pronounce it, Pinot Noir, and they kind of grow it everywhere in the world. A lot of cool climate places. This is Theopolis Vineyards. Miss Theodora Lee. I think she's probably, I don't want to guess her age, but Black woman from San Francisco who is a partner in a law firm. Her retreat was to go about an hour and a half, 2 hours north and continue what her father and her grandfather did were farmers. I believe they were from Texas. And instead of therapy, she bought a small vineyard. She's an educated lawyer, powerful lawyer, and she's like, I need to get away. She's known as Miss Theo, but also as Theopatra, Queen of the Vine. I was able to exclusively get this Theopolis Vineyards as a brand here in the Northeast, right? She said that she's tried over the years to get suppliers to pay attention to her, send them samples, never got a call back. I was able to bring her in, and now I brought in 55 cases of each, and we're crushing them, right? And now we're building relationships with her, and it's great. So we're supporting her. This is Pinot Noir from an area called Anderson Valley. Now, Anderson Valley is in Mendocino County in California, Northern California. Think about the redwood forest. It's actually, temperature-wise, it's one of the coolest growing regions. When you grow red wine in a cool region, it allows the grape to stay on the vine longer and really have a lot more complexity and build up a little bit more personality to that grape when you make it. But it also allows a higher level of acidity. Acid, when you think about acid, think about lemonade on one side of the spectrum and hot chocolate on the other side of the spectrum. You like them both, but you drink them, your palate asks for them at different times in different places. Cooler climate wines tend to have higher acidity. And so they're brighter, they're fresher, they're great food wines, where you get something that's a little bit more hot chocolatey, like a big California Chardonnay or an Australian Shiraz, where they tend to be a little bit more yummy and juicy, and you might not need food with them, right? Because they're kind of a meal within itself in its class. I'm drinking the 2014 Pinot Noir from her. And on our progressive scale, we have this as a 3R. Kind of jumped over this. I mentioned we wrote a book called Drink Progressively, and I created a system called the progressive scale, where wine is tasted, sold, and bought in a progressive format by the body of the wine. So I taste every single wine that I buy or before I buy it, and which equates to about 7,000 wines a year, my staff and I taste. And based on its mouthfeel, the liquid on my palate, do I feel that this is like skim milk on my palate, very light and watery and refreshing? Do I feel like this is whole milk, a little bit more creamy and a little bit more sustainable in my mouth? Or do I feel like this is heavy cream, where I take a sip and it just sits there? That skim milk, whole milk, heavy cream, that's the Urban Grapes progressive scale of 1 through 10 on that. And so for Pinot Noir, this is a medium-bodied Pinot Noir, being a 3R, but it's a light-bodied red wine. And so what's fun and helping taking the intimidation out of wine is that when you come into the Urban Grape, you might see this wine, but next to it, you might see a Barbera from Piedmont, Italy. You might see 25 other Pinot Noirs. You might see a Beaujolais from a different vintage, and it's all for the same palate. And what this does, it allows people to shop without the marketing aspect of like, wow, that's a really pretty label. Yeah, but is it going to go good with my food, right? So this is a great way to sell, and we've won some innovation designs on it, and it's great, and we're very happy to be the starters of that.
So TJ, what would I find at a 10?
So at a 10, Diego, you would find a massive Petite Syrah from California. You would find a massive Shiraz from Australia, maybe a big Amarone from the Veneto region in northeastern Italy, where they dry the grapes first, so it's a little bit sweeter and a little bit higher alcohol. That's what you'd find at a 10. And a 1, you find a lot of unoaked red wines that are almost rosé on that. Speaking of our book, Drink Progressively, you can buy it on our website. But Marini Pontes of ICIC in Boston is going to raffle off 3 signed copies that I signed last week tonight to all of you that decided to stay on and hear my babbling story about my life and how hard it is.
TJ, Callan's actually going to do that in the next couple minutes.
Oh, okay, perfect. So, so yeah, are there any questions at all?
Can you show the book again?
Yes.
I just want to Google as you do it. I don't think I'm allowed to win being from ICIC. Thank you.
I mean, while we have a moment, I mean, would anyone like to share a good moment that you've had in this program? My moment that I had, it really with my kind of like mentor on this that Diego provided, was to really look at my business and focus in, right? Like, we didn't need capital. We weren't looking to expand. We had all of these other things in place, but he said, like, look, you know, if you're working so hard to keep this customer, but this customer isn't really doing it for you, but you're not giving this customer enough attention, focus on this and maybe hand this person off to someone else in your company that can give them some attention. And, you know, I really took that, something that I wanted to do for years, but I needed another professional to tell me to do that, right? Also really stepping back and seeing that we do these wine bundles, right? These packages where you as a consumer, you don't really have to think, you just, you know, click and buy, right? And you have a whole theme. And that's huge really in most wares that people sell, whether it's cosmetics or pre-prepared dinners, right? Where it's all in one bundle and you just buy it now, you get it delivered and you cook it. And he said, you know, really focus on that. And this is something that my wife and I have been doing for a long time. But again, we needed someone else to kind of look at our profit and loss statement and our income statement and say, okay, I see that you make a lot of money here, but you're not making nearly as much as you should. What about these ideas? And so we had some great sessions. So that's really my moment with this program. I'd love to hear a couple of your moments. Anyone? Before I start calling on people. All right.
Well, I'm going to just interject that when I first started in it, you know, it actually took me a while in the ICIC program just to realize that it was free. And I say that wholeheartedly. They actually, and I've been in it now 3-4 years and got it. And every time you learn something amazing new, you should take it. As long as they'll let you go to a group, always go and interject. But I think my interjection is that sometimes we've always been told that nothing is free, right? Everything is that. And I think that this is a perspective that we have to change, that there are so many of Kaisers in the world that are trying to help small women-owned businesses because they do realize how valuable we are. And I think that that was my first take on the ICIC program, was that it was free and it was an opportunity. And if somebody opens a door that you don't walk through, it's a real shame. And I think that that's the perspective I hope everybody takes away first time, second time, third time, is that you never know who you're going to meet up with. And in my case, just you today. I just happened to go to the wine one and this venture. So that's the perspective I hope everybody leaves with, that what you do now, what you grow up to be, it's all about the people who you learn from along the way.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I will steal a moment to say, yep, that's been one of our biggest obstacles, is convincing business owners that indeed there is no catch. And I often joke with people who are signing up to the program and I say, there is a catch. I need you to answer my survey a year from now when I call you. I know how you're doing. So that's pretty much it. But I see Terry's raised her hand.
Yeah, I'll just build on that. I think I just fell into this session as well. And what came out of it for me is the obligation and just the paying it forward. And TJ, your story has been so inspirational, because I think what's so authentic about you is that you've interwoven give back and the ability to reach different markets, not necessarily within the wine industry, but someone in art that may have not even had that opportunity, but you provided that platform. And so as business owners, even though things are tough and it's the pandemic, we always have the ability to reach back and help someone in this time, even in a trying time. So I'm inspired by the story, and this organization has obviously provided a number of networking and tools and resources. But I think we always have to take a step and say, even though it's tough right now, what is our opportunity to still give back and make an impact?
Yeah, absolutely, Terry. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you. Yeah, you have to look at your community, right? Look at what's in your four walls, and look at your neighbor, and look across. And you have to first have to start with yourself, right? And then you have to grow. But you have to pay for, just because someone didn't have a door open for them doesn't mean that you can't open doors for everyone else. And it's a longer conversation when COVID's over and you guys are sitting at the dining room table, right? We're drinking many bottles of wine and getting into that whiskey. But thinking about this isn't a competition amongst ourselves. We have to, I was with someone the other day, and we're talking about, it's kind of like a coin phrase now, right? Being the only one in the room, or, pivot, or, creating, sitting at the table, like being at the table, right? Someone said, and if they're not going to make you at the table, build your own table and then invite them. Right. And that's what you got to do, and you got to start with the community. You got to get people that, and you have to make yourself reachable and accessible, right? Which is why I put my email on there. Most of you have been through things that I haven't been through, and I've been through most of the things that you haven't been through yet. Right. And so this is how we build our community and make everything better. So thank you for sharing that, Terry. I appreciate it. What's Broxton Design?
Sorry, which
Hi
one?
there. Sorry about that. Thank you so much,
okay.
TJ. It was wonderful. So hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yeah,
so
I can hear you.
Broxton Design is a full service commercial and residential interior design firm. So yes, we work a lot with hospitals, government facilities, commercial facilities. Been around for, since 2005. And so just being on this call, I appreciate you for just calling out, everything that's going on, like a person of color and all of that, and just acknowledging that, and just giving a hands up to people of color. So my whole deal is, if not right now, while the world really has their eye on people of color, then when. So for me, I had no idea whatsoever about this organization. And so when the email came across, I ignored it, but then it came across again. And then it said Kaiser. Well, Kaiser is one of my main clients. And so when I saw that, it was like, oh my God, let me do this. And so of course I was interviewed and was hoping that the guy would say my business was viable, and he did. So here I am. So now I can see the opportunities that are before me with Kaiser, because the fact that they are a sponsor, and it's the first time it's hitting Colorado, and I'm out of Colorado. So I'm going to take this and run with it and say, as a sponsor, I am African American. I am, the DBE, MBE, SBE, 8A. I have all the acronyms, and just take the opportunity and say, seriously, and use it for my, as best as I can for my ability, because we're doing the work, but now we can expand. So thank you for calling on me. I appreciate you. Congratulations. The foundation that you're doing for, people. Just think about 5 years, 10 years down the road, when you come together with your alumni, what you're doing. I just honor you and your wife for that. That's a blessing.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Pat. Congratulations to you. Your business, I'm assuming your business is up during COVID, with new designs and figuring out like different MERV filters and, and 6 foot distancing and,
it's tough, but, we're powering through. It's tough. It really is, because everybody's home now.
Yeah.
So, it's tough. So, they're not doing furniture and all of that, but, pivot, it's what you have to do. But I can see, through the tone now. So, fear, there's no time for that. There's just no time for it.
So doesn't it feel like, and I made this comment earlier in the evening, COVID has, I said, like, we're past the pivoting stage. We've reimagined our company and what it is and what it can be. But it brought us back to that gut hustle entrepreneur, right? We get a little comfortable, right? We had that great client. And like, we're gonna be good, right? I don't need to do anything, right? And then, but it puts you on. You're like, oh, but this is what makes us entrepreneurs and not working for someone else.
Exactly.
Right? Is that we take the risk and we use our ideas and stuff like this, and we make ourselves vulnerable by being on the screen and saying, yeah, I want to hear other people's ideas and stories, So
absolutely.
How about you, Mr. McFrazier?
Hey, how's it? My company, Specific IT, we provide managed IT services to businesses. Our headquarters are on the island of Maui, but we have a second location in Bellingham, Washington, if you've ever heard of it. We're about a half an hour from the Canadian border. But I definitely, probably my biggest takeaway is just really seeing the diversity in the business owners. And, much of the areas that Hawaii was definitely diverse as far as business owners, but where I'm living right now, you don't see it as much as you would like. So it's just kind of beautiful just seeing, all these different faces and the support for one another and networking and all of that is definitely my biggest takeaway. Also that the program is free, but yeah, and also too, showing, a lot of the resources that are out there. We started our business out of the, recession of, 2008. Both me and my wife lost our jobs, and there was no tech jobs on Maui. And so I just started going in my truck and starting to do computer repair. And one thing led to another, but there was never business planning, at all. And we were literally living off of what we made last week. And so a lot of our day-to-day business planning was just, how do we survive until next week? And I didn't even know all of the resources that were available to me. And honestly, I have to say that COVID has actually been a helpful effect on our business. I mean, we've never taken out loans or any of that stuff, and those things became available to us during COVID, and it's going to make us be able to put us in a position in 2021, including with this program and some of the contacts that we've made. It'll put us in a different position in 2021. So definitely glad to hear that, and definitely glad to hear the paying it forward. I think that's really important. We try to do the same thing in the local communities that we work in, trying to give back as much as we can. And I think all of that's important.
Thank you, Eric, so much for sharing. We are at 6:35, so I'm just going to quickly pass the mic over to my colleague, Mary Pontes. She is going to be announcing our gift card, our book raffle winners. So Mary, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Colin. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. Give me a sec. All right. So I guess we'll do like a virtual drum roll.
I've never seen this.
So cool.
Ooh, so the first one is Gary from Maui Economic Development Board. For the raffle winners, I will be sending you an email to get your address so we can ship out the books. So just FYI. Now we're down to 2 more folks.
This is great.
Yeah, I love this one.
It's the little things, right?
And then Greg. All right. And then the final. And then Jorge. So congratulations to those 3 winners. Like I said, I'll follow up with you all in an email so we can get the best mailing address for you and get those books out. And thank you, TJ, for giving us those books. I'm looking forward to kind of helping you all kind of continue to curate your palette and getting access to a lot of really great wines.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be on here. I'm honored to be part of the program. And all of you new faces and voices that I've seen and heard tonight, please don't be strangers. I do want to say something that Eric McFrazier pointed out, that they do some community work and some pay it forward. What I'd like to see, and this is not to promote yourself, but promote what you're doing so that others actually see it, right? Make them hop on board with what you're doing, and I think it's a very organic way to grow these community organizations. And nothing's too small, but if you promote that you're doing it and use social media, which is free, they can grow, and you never know who's going to be, you never know who's going to like that or reach out. So so good for all of you. Stay strong, stay healthy. Check us out on our social media feeds, and they put my email in there, so feel free to email me anything about wine or life, anything, Boston Celtics, whatever.
And TJ, let us know when the tequila tasting is, because I think we got more than a few people here like, the whiskey tasting, the tequila tasting. We're like, rosé, all good, but let's actually start talking tequila.
All right, sounds good.
Hardcore group here.
Thank you so much.
It's been a rough year.
I'm really happy to be
that is incredible tequila over there.
And here's to 2021.
Cheers, everyone.
Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thanks, TJ.